of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
KLEK 102.5. Do you have mic 5 on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, you can hear me? Okay, now I can hear me. KLEK 102.5 FM. Good morning to you on your Wednesdays, May 10th, 2017. This is Community Conversations. Cato Wonder is in the studio with you. I've got a lot of people in the studio with me today. I have my co-host, Mrs. Quabila Harden, and we have local attorney Scott Willhite. It is our Ask the Attorney segment that we do the second Wednesday of every month on Community Conversations. We also have Miss Micah, who is our intern, who
Good morning.
is running the board for us, and we have our newest intern, Miss Alexis, who is helping Micah, and she's also going to be streaming on Instagram. So now we have live streaming on Facebook, Instagram, and Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram as well.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning. All right, Mr. Willhite. So, Mr. Scott, thank you for joining us.
Oh, but hold on.
You're welcome.
But before we get into it, even though we're technically not supposed to promote, but I just got to say, if Scott ever represents you in court and you don't get the outcome that you desire, he can punch the judge and the prosecuting attorney out. So, Scott has a video on his page where he's actually doing boxing training, and it's like this, like we say, Scott got them hands.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, and now
I'm working hard.
now we'll get into serious thoughts on the matter.
All right, so thank you for joining us today, Mr. Scott.
You're welcome.
I know I'm always throwing out a bunch of topics at you, and you're probably like, okay, what now? What today? What? We're actually going to start talking about wills. I know people don't want to think about it. It seems kind of morbid, but unfortunately, death is a part of life. And so we have to start planning what the choice is going to be made for us. So last time you were here, you had talked to Lagenzi and I about starting a living will. And I don't know how far Lagenzi has got his process, and I unfortunately have not started mine. But
Well, mine is complete. I don't think I do need to add an addendum about organ donation, but
okay.
you know, I mean, when Scott did mine, it was pretty quick. I mean, in fact, when I came to the office, it was already drawn up. All I had to do was just sign it, and his secretary was a notary, and she notarized it, and so it was done just like that.
Okay.
And I'm sure, you know, whatever attorney that, you know, you out there listening choose to do it for you, probably can do it in a similar process. Probably just, you know, tell them what your wishes are for your what you want them to do if you can't make that decision for yourself, and they'll get it wrote up and signed and notarized, and they'll keep a copy, and they'll give you a copy, and you're good to go.
Alrighty, so let's start out talking about living wills, what they are, how to get started, what information needs to be included in them.
Okay. Back up and let's just sort of give an overview of, you know, what we try to do in the legal profession is plan for the worst case scenario. And so each of us, you know, there could be opportunities where we're unable to make healthcare decisions for ourselves. And so that's the purpose of a living will. It's just a document. It addresses that situation, and it outlines what you want to happen in the event you're not able to make decisions for yourself. So for instance, if you're in a coma, if your health declines to the point that you're not able to communicate, if, you know, for instance, Lagenzi had a serious medical procedure, and you want to make sure that the people who are making decisions for you, if you're not able to, are the ones that you want.
Yes.
You know, because someone will be making those decisions if you're not conscious. So a living will is simply a document we draft. It includes, you know, your information, the information of the person who you select as your what's called a healthcare proxy.
Okay.
And it indicates what kind of procedures you would accept and what kind you do not want to accept.
Okay.
Many people might say, you know, if I'm in a situation where I have to have a ventilator or something very, very serious to sustain my life,
Okay.
I want to tell someone whether to do that or not. You know, whether to give pain medications, whether to give sustenance, food, you know, to continue my condition if I'm not able to make those decisions. So You know, and I'm sure each of us have had family members who have gone through difficult scenarios like that, and there's enough emotion in the situation already without the additional issue of who's going to make these very, very difficult decisions.
Yes, sir.
So if the person who is incapacitated specifically identifies what he or she wants to happen, I think it alleviates a lot of emotion and difficulty that may otherwise occur. So it's just a document that attempts to address those issues and outline the person who's incompetent or unconscious, their wishes under certain circumstances.
Okay. So say in the event that, someone is in an accident, is it protocol for, say, emergency services to ask you if you have a living will on file? And for whatever instance it's after hours, how can the will be accessed? Sorry. Say you go to the hospital, your lawyer is out of town or unavailable. Like, how will it be?
Well, let's talk about those a couple of different issues. First, I think just about every medical care facility requests that information. Do you have a healthcare proxy? Do you have a living will? They may ask it in a variety of forms, but they're asking that, for that information. Have you identified someone who you want to make decisions for you?
Okay.
Well, and I can comment on that, not to interrupt, but throughout all the phases, as I was getting ready for my surgery, I was asked for that. In fact, Baptist even provided me. Since I told them no, they said, well, if you want to do one, here's a form that you can take to assist with getting it done. Even when I went to the emergency room when I had my stomach bug a couple weeks back, they asked, do you have one? So that's something that you'll always get asked whenever you go to a hospital, at least all the ones I've ever been to.
And that's for a variety of reasons. Number one, the healthcare facility doesn't want someone making decisions that you don't want to make decisions. So they want, for liability-wise, they look at lawyers as trying to sue, them, and that's not necessarily what we always do. Sometimes we have to do that, unfortunately. But what they want to do is clarify the information. Is this person has this person identified a healthcare proxy? And as Leganzi said, they have forms that you can fill out that you identify that person if you need to on an immediate basis. And those are pre-printed forms that may be very, very limited in what powers they address. What we try to do is address a broader variety of powers in my office, so you can sit down and think about the different procedures, the different scenarios that might occur, and what you want and don't want to happen.
Okay. Let's get into, something some people may bring up. Well, I can't afford it. I can't go to a lawyer, so how do you address those people?
Well, a living will is not expensive.
Okay.
And I'm not going to share the family discount that I gave to Leganzi.
The KLEK hookup price.
But typically a living will is $200.
Oh.
And we allow people to pay that out if they can't pay that in lump sum, just in one payment. But it's a document. It's one, maybe 2 pages. It depends on how specific someone wants to be. So it's pretty affordable.
Okay.
And it avoids a lot of potential conflict. Especially if you have a large family. Let's say someone has multiple siblings, or a spouse, an ex-spouse, children, and you're not sure who's going to make those decisions for that person. It just it alleviates a lot of problems. Okay, so
that fee is actually a great investment in your family. It's an investment.
Yes.
So it's worth it.
And are those fees, like, I know you mentioned that, well, yours, but is that like typical, like no matter what the attorney give or take
Every
bit?
attorney charges a different amount, probably.
But within the same range. I don't think it'd be like you go to one attorney and they say, well, we're going to charge you $10,000.
No, I would say that's pretty middle of the road as far as the price for a living will.
Okay. Now let's get into talking about, individuals have a living will which covers them before death. Okay, so in the event of an unfortunate death occurs, now, it's time to divvy up the assets or make the final arrangements for the individual. So let's get into the will writing process.
Okay. And what we like to do is look at that at the same time as a living will. So someone comes into my office typically they'll say, I need a will.
Okay.
And I ask, do you also want to address your health care issues? And they'll say yes. So then we do a living will to address that. Then when we get to the will, what we do is look at what assets they want to transfer to people at their death.
Okay.
And so many people have this negative view of probate. They think probate, the government's going to get money, lawyer's going to get the money, and my relatives are not going to get anything.
Well, Scott, for those who may not know, could you define the word probate?
Sure. What that means is it's the division of the assets of the person who is deceased. The deceased is called the decedent. Okay, that's the person who is deceased, obviously. And it's a process whereby the assets, the debts, are distributed. They're passed along.
Okay.
The hardest asset to transfer would be anything with a title. For instance, land. It has a deed. And so typically if I passed away and I owned property, that was only owned by me, it would be in my name. There would be a deed down at the county office, the circuit clerk.
Okay.
And it would be, Scott Willhite owns such and such property. Well, no one can transfer that to another person without some process.
Okay.
The probate process allows the transfer of that deed or that property to someone else. It may go to my wife, my children, so the probate process allows the appointment of someone called an executor, a personal representative. It's called various things at different points. But it's someone who gathers up all the assets. You put a note in the paper identifying that an estate has been opened for a person, and potential creditors can file a proof of claim which says that they are owed money. So the process is to identify the assets, identify the debts, and then make the distributions either according to a will or according to the law of the state where you are. So and let's get back to when someone's in my office, they said I need a will. What we do is we go through what assets you have that have a title. Do you own real estate? Do you own vehicles? Things that have a title that need to be transferred to other people. So we first identify those. Many people want, their person. Say it's someone who has a special piece of jewelry, maybe a vehicle they want to give to their, grandson, or a piece of jewelry they want to give to their daughter. Those are things we put in the will as a specific a bequest. We make a specific gift of that piece of property to that individual. Sometimes people just say, I want it split 3 ways between my 3 kids.
Okay.
Or, so that is what we address with the will on the front end. All right?
All right. You're tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. If you have any questions for Mr. Scott Willhite, the phone number is 870-277-1080. Please give us a call, join the conversation, or you can leave us a message on our Facebook live stream.
Or our Instagram, which our newest intern, Alexis, is over manning. So if you have any questions, if you're watching on Instagram, you can post those questions there as well, and Alexis will let us know, and we'll get your questions answered. And of course, the phone lines are open at 870-277-1080. Once again, that phone number is 870-277-1080.
All right, Mr. Scott, have you ever had to oversee the reading of a will?
I've never actually done that.
Okay.
I've seen it in the movies, and that's one of those things you assume is a part of the probate process. It's really not. What happens in the probate process? Let's say we're in that situation. I draft a will for someone. The inevitable happens eventually. That person passes away. The will is usually kept with the person who drafted it, who the decedent, but I'll keep a copy at my office as well.
Okay.
So someone will have a copy of the will. Someone may have the original, but that is filed with the court.
Okay.
So the court has the original, and someone is named as the overseer, administrator, executor, whatever you want to call it, to gather up everything, to sort of oversee, to take care of the work of doing that.
Okay.
And so they'll file that will, and they'll petition to have themselves or someone appointed to be personal representative. And that's how the probate process starts, in court.
In the court, okay. And I don't want to be negative Nancy about everything, but you know, things happen. In case of fire, flood, disaster, something tragic happens. So whoever holds the original copy, it's now demolished. It's gone. So what is the next step from there?
Well, you can file a copy, and so that's why I keep a copy at my office. We have files from years and years back, a special filing cabinet in my office. We typically give the person who wants the will drafted several copies and the original so they can have them placed with their family members that they trust. So you try to make sure that you have the original, and if not, a true and correct copy that you can file with the court.
And of course, in my case, when Scott did my living will, I emailed copies to my wife, who was obviously my proxy, and then other family members. Because a couple of them were like, I don't want to read that. You about to be under the knife cut open. I want to think about that. But
and that's a good point.
They still got it though. They got an email to them.
Yeah, you asked Wabila earlier, what happens if this is on a weekend and you don't have access to the people, the living will and such? That's a great practice to have multiple copies, because you're not going to, if you're in an accident, you're not going to go to the hospital with a copy of your living will in your pocket, and you want those family members that maybe you've identified. Say, for instance, if you identified your brother or your sister as your healthcare proxy in a living will situation, you want to give them a copy. Leganzi emails a copy to his family members. That's a great practice, but you want someone to have that so that they can bring it to the medical facility if you need it. The same practice with a will. You want someone to have it who is going to be, say, named the personal representative. You want them to have a copy so they will be able to provide that to the court if you can't.
Okay.
Michael, you coming up to the mic like you had something you wanted to say?
I do. I wanted to know in detail, how do you handle situations where people may not have the title, say for instance, to the land or cars and things like that, if they've been so old, if they've been so rusted or worn down?
Well, as far as land goes, the circuit clerk typically keeps a record of all the deeds.
Shout out to Kate Holiday.
Right. Well, actually, Kate is the county clerk. This is Candace.
Candace. Well, shout out to
office.
Candace. She just had a birthday too, so happy belated birthday to her.
But Candace's office, there's a computer down there you can go to and you can check most every piece of property in Craighead County, and you can determine who owns that, or you can do a search on a person's name, and you say for instance, if I passed away, you could put my name in there and it would show, hopefully, every piece of property that I had an ownership interest. And so the personal representative would get that list of property and would take it to the court and say, Scott Willhite owns an interest in these pieces of property. You can go to the revenue office down on Southwest Drive and ask, through their computer system, if I own any vehicles. And so there's government offices that can give you that information.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. I apologize.
No, we always encourage you. Ask. This is part of your internship. Not just sitting and clicking buttons and stuff, but be interactive.
Right. So, in the event that someone has multiple heirs, how do you track down the recipients, I'm guessing, of that will?
Well, when you file the petition, it has to include certain information, and a list of potential heirs is a requirement. And it's very difficult if someone has a huge number of potential heirs, because you've got to list their address and their relationship. And if you don't know that information, sometimes we have to file petitions with unknown. We just start the discovery process of, let's just say, if I passed away and I had 3 or 4 brothers and sisters, and we don't know where 2 of them are. We don't know if they're living, deceased, whatever. We have to identify the ones that we are aware of, and maybe put unknown as to the others.
Okay.
Now to follow up on that, so let's say there are, you mentioned brothers and sisters. You may not know specifically where they are, but you know that, okay, they live in, I'll just say Chicago. Could you put a notice in the Chicago paper saying that that something's going on, you need to contact this address to see?
Well, that's another part of the process is what happens when you file your petition. You're asking for someone to be appointed to oversee the operations. They're typically called the personal representative. So once the court approves that and appoints the personal representative, that person is obligated to put a notice in the paper for 2 consecutive weeks that the estate has been opened. It's for 2 purposes. One is for creditors. Maybe they had a credit card that they owed, or maybe they owed, Walmart or Lowe's or something, and they can file a proof of claim saying they are owed money. But it's also to notify potential heirs that there's an estate open. Maybe, their friend tells them or their cousin tells them, and so they get the information. But there is a less formal process to identify the location, identity of potential heirs. But yes, that's one thing the courts are going to eventually require, is for that heir to get notice.
Of course, now with social media, imagine you could also post a notice on social media. This is the Ask the Attorney Day with local attorney Scott Willhite. You listen to Community Conversations, and this is KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
Can you recognize the red flags in your marriage? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. It's hard to watch a marriage crumble, especially when one or both spouses stubbornly refuse to seek help. So here are some signs that may indicate that your marriage needs outside help. First, when communication on meaningful issues is almost zero. It's a big red flag when spouses cannot have a civil discussion on something important. The second sign your marriage may be in trouble is when the only shortcomings one sees is in their spouse and not their own. The spouse who always blames and never takes responsibility is the poster child for denial. For more signs your marriage may be in trouble, check out my blog at markmerrill.com. Remember, your family first.
For more resources on today's topic, go to markmerrill.com.
Family Minute is made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization committed to service to all mankind. Kappa Nu Omega Alpha Kappa Alpha on Facebook and KNOMEGA1908.com.
Starks Auto Plaza, your pre-owned superstore, is a longtime supporter of KLEK. 2829 Red Wolf Boulevard, Starks offers clean, reliable vehicles of all makes and models. Starks also offers no-hassle pricing, friendly service, financing options with approved credit. At Starks, you're always family, and our motto is, we never say no. 870-203-9980. StarksAutoPlaza.com.
Support for KLEK is brought to you by
the 17th Annual Arkansas Delta Family Gospel Fest, May 20th at the Cherry Street Pavilion in Helena, Arkansas. The festivities kick off at noon with the Sounds of Fullness of Joy Choir. Gospel nationally known rapper, songwriter, producer, and pastor from Real Preachers of Atlanta, Kenton Jones. Headline performer and Grammy winner, Erica Campbell of Mary Mary. For information, DeltaCulturalCenter.com or 870-338-4350. Gospel Fest is brought to you by Delta Cultural Center, the Department of Arkansas Heritage, and the National and Cultural Resources Council.
Do you like the music you hear on KLEK 102.5 FM? Do you like the educational programming that we provide? Do you like the service we provide to the community? Do you like having a station to finally call your own that represents you? If so, please stop by or call any of our underwriters or sponsors that you hear on KLEK and tell them thank you for their support. The support of our underwriters and sponsors is vital for us to stay on the air. So be sure to let them know that you thank them for their support.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversations on KLEK with our guest, local attorney Scott Willhite. This is our Ask the Attorney segment on KLEK Community Conversations. And of course, if you have a question for Scott, you can ask him by giving us a call at 870-2. Now I almost gave my cell number out. Remix. Well, I've had it for 16 years. It's not like it's hard to find this publicly out there. But anyway, 870-277-1080. Once again, that phone number is 870-277-1080. You can also post your questions and comments on our Facebook live stream. And we're also now streaming on Instagram. So you can leave your comments as well, and our volunteer Alexis will let us know if you have any questions on that platform.
All right, so are there any final thoughts that you would like to give us on wills?
We had talked in a legal minute where I just did a quick recitation of general information on wills in the past, but I wanted to bring this up for practicality. Arkansas recognizes two types of wills.
Okay.
All right, the first is what we would typically think of as a typewritten will. It has to be witnessed by two people. Their signatures have to meet certain requirements. There have to be statements saying
no chicken scratch.
Right, no chicken scratch.
Well, don't ever ask me to witness anyone's documents.
Well, we get it not only in cursive but in printed too, so we can read your name and have the address and such. But that's what we would typically think of as a will, is a typewritten document the attorney prepares. It's notarized, witnessed by two people. The second type is called a holographic. It is one that is totally in the handwriting of the decedent. And it's very specific because it doesn't meet the typical formality requirements of the type will. And when I say type will, I'm just talking about the general will. I call it a will rather than a type will. But a will, has those requirements that make sure that the person who is declaring what they want to happen is that person, that it is witnessed by people, it's sufficiently clear and definite. The holographic will you can do in the privacy of your own home. You can handwrite a will, and if there are three people who can verify that is your handwriting, it is your last will, and it's sufficiently clear that that's what you want. This is my last will, here's what I want to do, then it can be valid.
Okay.
All right, so if you're in a pinch and you say, I just want to do a will, say I'm going on a trip, and I need something very quickly, it can be valid under the holographic will statute if you put it totally in your handwriting. It's a little risky, obviously, because if it's invalid, then it would. The Arkansas law generally passes assets to a person's children and spouse, 2/3 to the children, 1/3 to the spouse, when there is no will.
Okay.
So you've got the general typewritten will, you've got a holographic will, or you've got the situation where there is no will. Those are the three scenarios we come across in probate proceedings.
Okay. Now, even though you haven't overseen or, actually read a will, in the presence of the family, have you had the opportunity to sit in on a will reading?
Only indirectly, where people call me and they say, hey, there's a will, what do we do about this? What do we do about that? But I've never seen the formality that you see in the movies where people actually sit in a room, and I've never even heard of that happening recently. It's something generally that is passed around to the family, and they decide what they want to do.
Okay.
And any of the potential affected heirs can file that petition I was talking about earlier.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be a specific person. So that petition can be filed by any person who is affected. But I think, just as a practical matter, a person gets a copy of the will, they read it, wherever they want to, and they decide if they want to open the probate process or if they want to participate in the process as filed or initiated by some other family member.
Okay. Now, as a lawyer, I'm sure you've had people come to your office with all types of requests and information. So do you have any, I don't want to say funny stories, but interesting stories as you're drafting people's wills?
A will is such a serious matter. The only thing I can think of is a dog. If they want to transfer a dog, that's...
Have you been asked that?
I have been asked that. And, you never know. A dog has a short lifespan, and it's a little strange. But, a will is such a serious matter that when someone comes in my office, it never gets lighthearted very often. We're thinking about really serious matters.
Well, of course, I know movies have tainted people's views of how things actually work. We talk about this with the police, fire, and everyone else. The movies have tainted the view of what reality is.
Sure.
You're seeing some movies where, especially when it comes to families with a lot of money, where say it was the grandfather, and he's going to call himself stick it to the rest of the family, so he puts all these different clauses and things in the will. So I was wondering if you ever have had an experience like that.
You know, the most difficult situation, it's not funny, but it makes you step back and think maybe you should do this at an earlier time.
Okay.
Is when someone wants a will drafted, and then they get to the point of signing it, and they're not totally in touch with reality. Maybe they have some dementia, or maybe they have some memory issues. Because someone who signs a will, they have to be in their a sound state. Mentally, sound mind, and so you don't want to wait to a point that you may not meet that requirement. Okay. You want to do it at a time that you are able to accomplish that. So that's the most unfortunate circumstances I've seen, is when someone is going to sign a will and I ask them what year it is, or who's the president, or some information to see if they're in touch with reality, and they really don't know.
Oh wow. Okay.
So then we're in a little bit of a different circumstance.
All right. So in your practice, have you ever had to be in a position where, okay, people want to contest the will? Like you said, the person who signed it wasn't in the right state of mind. Their family knew or felt they were not mentally capable of making these types of decisions. So that now the family wants to contest. It could be out of greed. It could be out of whatever. But have you had to be in the midst of those type of situations?
I have. And not very often, but occasionally circumstances will arise where the validity of the will is at issue.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one issue. And it can be either under the typical typewritten will. Maybe there's not sufficient witnessing. Maybe there weren't two witnesses. It may be that there's a question, the person notarizing it is one of the people who take under the will. There's conflict issues. Or under a holographic will, I've done some research recently that people are using these pre-printed forms now that have some typed information and some handwritten information.
Wow.
And Arkansas has pretty clearly rejected those forms because the holographic will has to be totally in the handwriting of the decedent.
Okay.
And where there's both typed information and handwritten information, you really can't tell when it was written. There's lots of questions that arise, but as a matter of law, they typically have rejected those. So that's another reason that a will may be invalid.
Micah?
My question is, what is a bypass trust?
Now we're getting real serious.
Okay.
We didn't even get into trust, but let me just address what a trust is first, okay? Let's say that you are going to prepare a will and you have a child that's not yet 18 or maybe not yet to the age that you want to give them something of value. Let's say you have some money in the bank, I don't know, $10,000, and you think, if I give money to my child at the age of 18 or at the age of 12, it's probably never good to give someone that young, a great amount of money. Mm-hmm. They'll go buy candy or a car or whatever, and it's gone. So a trust is a legal mechanism that you put restrictions on that. For instance, you may name a person you trust at the bank or a family member as a trustee, and that trustee oversees the administration of that money. It may say, I give my son $10,000 in trust, and the trustee is my brother so-and-so, and my child is going to receive $500 a month as long as he's in school, or something of that sort. Okay. And so it puts restrictions on the sort of the giving of that asset.
Okay. So how does it work whenever, I guess, property becomes involved, and how does that work with age?
Well, you can put any sort of restrictions you want. You could say this property, let's just say you own some property, your house. You say, I put my house in trust, and at the age of 30, I give it free and clear to my child. So the trust remains for a period of time that you declare. Okay? It's not limited to just the reading of the will and it's over. It continues for a period of time, and you set the time, the parameters. You could say, as long as my child lives in the house, he retains ownership, and if he ever moves out, it's going to be sold and the money given to charity or whatever. You could do whatever you want with that asset. All right, a lot of people in this area who have farms do that to keep the farm in the family. They put it in a trust, the so-and-so family trust, farm trust, and that property is not going to be sold. It's just going to continue to be in the family. They may reap the benefits of the profits. Every year they get crop profits, but they don't sell the property. No one can sell that property in the family. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And there's very, very technical legal issues regarding trust because of tax issues.
Okay.
Who's the owner of that piece of property or that asset? Who's going to get taxed for it? What tax rate? There's all kinds of issues, and those are more complicated than I deal with. I'm not a tax lawyer, and there are tax lawyers, some in this area, mainly in the larger communities, that address those kinds of issues of bypass trusts and things of that sort. But there are those issues you have to look at when you get a substantial amount of assets.
Right. We can't recommend a lawyer for you to go to, but
One, I don't even know a tax lawyer.
Mr. Scott, concerning wills, if you have more questions, you can call him, contact him, and we'll make sure that you can get his information. We'll post it on a link under the.
And in our Facebook Live feed, he does have a Facebook page for his office, which is tagged. So, that page is also available for more information.
All right. So we can't give out prices and things, and we want you to actually go sit and have a conversation with Mr. Scott or any lawyer in his office, and maybe if he can't help you, he will recommend someone that can help you. If you would like to join our conversation right now, though, you can give us a call, 870-277-1080. Again, that's 2870.
So you messing up numbers now. I guess since I'm actually in the guest seat and I'm not actually on the board, I guess I'm just being more playful today.
All right. Again, that phone number is 870-277-1080. Like Ginsey, I usually almost give out my phone number too. But anyway, join the conversation. Ask a question. This is your opportunity to speak to a lawyer while we have him in the studio.
Of course, don't forget about that Facebook live streaming and Instagram.
Yeah.
Actually, Alexis, you actually got it on your personal Instagram streaming. That's station.
Okay. All right. So,
well, we have a Facebook shout out. Let me see if I can pull it up. Who it is? Well, you can keep talking. If I find it, I'll shout it out.
Let me add one thing, Quabila. I talked about a living will and how that avoids stress of a very difficult situation if someone is incapacitated. A will does the very same thing. People are there's no more traumatic situation than when someone passes. All right, and so the family members are already traumatized and emotionally distraught and having a difficult time, most likely. And so clearly identifying what is supposed to happen at that point, I think alleviates a lot of the stress that we can feel. We can all imagine what would happen if our close family member passed away, and then the added stress of, okay, what's going to happen to the house, the car, why should I even have to deal with that? I would like to have it clearly identified because it was that person's asset of what's going to happen. So I would highly recommend that people address these estate planning issues at a time when they're competent, clear thinking, so that those issues don't arise that become harder and harder on our family members.
And we do have the Facebook shout. It's actually from your lovely wife, Amy Cook Willhite. So, Amy, thank you for checking in on our Facebook live stream.
Hi, Amy. One day we're going to have to get her in the studio.
I don't think she's ever even been by
She's
a
a
visit.
nurse, so she would have a lot of medical information. And
well, we always like to talk to nurses and other health professionals. I know we've had people from both St. Bernard's and NEA Baptist come on, and from Arkansas State as well, talking about various health issues.
I'll be definitely getting her.
and she's a lot smarter than me anyway. So.
And she's in the, she's like Scott. She's in the fitness as well. So
She
maybe
is.
we can have them on together. Scott can talk boxing and she can talk weightlifting.
Okay.
She's into Olympic weightlifting to some extent, so she really enjoys it.
So he got them hands, and she can probably bench press all of us. So.
All right, so I know I had sent you a message, and we might not have enough time to really get into this topic, but during our Thoughts on the Matter on Saturday, the topic came up about appointed versus elected judges. The specific topic was about judges. So,
and that's a recent issue that our governor has identified. is whether it would be better, especially our appellate judges. And when I say appellate judges, I mean the Court of Appeals and our Supreme Court. Those are the two courts that oversee the circuit court decisions in this state. So they are currently elected, right?
Okay.
And so we know how elected officials, we know that situation. We deal with it in every other arena, whether it's our clerks, our representatives and such. So the question is, would we rather have the governor or some authorized group of people appoint judges who we know are qualified, who meet certain requirements, or should the people elect judges that they think are most qualified? And there's an argument to be made on both sides. If we say we would like to have elected judges, well, that's going to disqualify some people because maybe they don't have the financial means to get in that election. They may be a great potential judge. They may have practiced law and they may know the law. And quite frankly, some areas of the law just are not as financially lucrative as others. Someone practices in this area may not make as much money as someone who practices in this area. That may keep them from being able to run for a judge position. But on the other hand, if someone is appointed, do they have a political agenda to accomplish or not? So we have a lot of issues on both sides, and I don't think there's a clear-cut answer. Some people have a clear-cut position, clear-cut. But
maybe a compromise, and maybe like how many seats are on that appellate or Supreme Court. Maybe some of the positions are elected, some are appointed, and then that way you kind of can have a mix of, where you have some judges that the people elect and some that are appointed. So that way you can still get the option of getting those people on there who, like you said, may have the qualifications and the experience, but just don't have the money, or maybe not be a great campaigner. They may not can motivate people to donate millions of dollars to a campaign to get elected.
Or if we did something similar to a federal process, a federal judge is identified by the president or his representatives, and then the Congress votes on them. You could even have a system similar to that. Now it may be a little more cumbersome because we're talking about limited money that we can spend on that type of process, but we do want the best judges in those positions because those are the final authorities for the law in this state.
Okay.
They make the final decisions, and when they say it's over, it's over. Unless you get maybe petitioned to the United States Supreme Court, and that's by it's not automatic, it's discretionary. So we want the best judges that we can have in those positions, and there's less than 20 positions that we're talking about.
Now, Scott, weren't you at one point appointed to like a temporary judgeship for the state?
I was, and I acted in that capacity for about a year. What happens is the Supreme Court was deciding two rather large cases, and so one of the judges had a conflict in that he knew an attorney that was representing one of the parties, so he had to step down. Under that scenario, the governor appoints someone to fill in for that Supreme Court justice for that case or for those cases. So in my circumstance, there were two class action suits that had been filed, and one of the justices stepped down for a conflict, so I filled in for those two cases. It involved work for about 6 to 8 months.
And this was on the Supreme Court?
It was on the Supreme Court. I actually got to sit with the Supreme Court.
Well, see, that's on your resume.
Meet with them, sit on the bench, and it really felt different being on that side of the bench. I have been on the other side arguing before the Supreme Court, and I tell you, it's a lot more comfortable sitting on their side, knowing that you don't have to answer any questions and things that you don't want. But really, the interaction with those Supreme Court justices, and we can talk about it a little bit more, was very, very cool.
Okay.
All right, well, see, we learn something new every day. Our guest is not only a local attorney, but he has served on the Arkansas State Supreme Court, and his name is Scott Willhite. And the name of this show is Community Conversations, and the name of this station is KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. Regular Money Matters listeners know that you can't manage money effectively without a monthly spending plan, also known as a budget. But what would you do if your income were suddenly reduced by 10%? Job loss, furloughs, salary cuts, or disability can happen to any of us at any time, resulting in temporarily or permanently reduced incomes. You can't always prevent these circumstances, but you can and should plan for them. That's why now is a good time to build a hardship budget, or a couple of them. Just take your current household budget and decide what expenses you'd cut and how extra income could be generated if your current income was cut by 30%. You may never need them, but if you do, you'll be better prepared in the face of a financial crisis. Having a hardship budget can give you the kind of peace of mind that money can't buy. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Money Matters is made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization dedicated to uncompromising commitment to communities, service, leadership, empowerment. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. 5 locations in Jonesboro to serve you. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
Hey y'all, this is Dariana and I'm one of the members of the Golden Pirates. Come see us live Friday night, May 12th, 7 o'clock at the Epicenter. 1899 CR 333 Hasbrook Road in Jonesboro, Arkansas. It's gonna be swinging, hair, back popping, and attitude. It's just gonna be lit. Come see us. You could get your tickets for $5 or 2 for $8. You could get your tickets from KLEK website. This event is a KLEK and Golden Pirates fundraiser.
Friday Night Live, May 12th at the Epic Center, starting at 7 o'clock p.m., featuring the Golden Firettes, Pink Diamonds, Dynamic Dance, Purple Dolls, and the Explosive Dreamettes dance teams. Don't miss it.
Arkansas Early Learning offers child care activities and educational programs to children ages 0 to 5. That gives them a head start in life. Arkansas Early Learning is in the community at no cost. Applications at arearlylearning.org. That's arearlylearning.org or on Facebook at Arkansas Early Learning.
Arkansas Early Learning is a nonprofit organization.
When a woman gives her all to a boyfriend, she is hopeful about the future. Marriage was in her future plans until she received some shocking news. Now with her dream shattered and life altered, she has to pick up the pieces and move forward. It was in this experience that she realized that love has no protection. KLEK 102.5 and Massey Production presents the inspirational gospel stage play, Love Has No Protection, a story that will inspire you, renew, and reaffirm your faith. Featuring performers from all over Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana. One big show, 7 p.m. Saturday, June 24th at the Arkansas State University Student Union Auditorium. Tickets are $10 in advance, $15 at the door, and can be purchased at KLEK, Cool Cuts, and online at www.klekfm.org or by calling 870-277-1080. Bring the entire family Saturday, June 24th to the Arkansas State University Student Union Auditorium to see Love Has No Protection, the inspirational gospel stage play, 7 p.m. This event is a KLEK fundraiser.
House of Details, located at 3217 Herb Street, Suite C, is a proud supporter of KLEK, offering detailing on any type of vehicle: waxing, clear coat protection, basic wash, hand wash, shampoo, interior cleaning, buffering, headlight restoration, pickup, delivery, and more. With a motto of, anything mean, we can clean. Details available via Quentin Bogard at 870-273-5187. House of Details on Facebook and houseofdetailsjonesboro.com.
Did you know KLEK has a brand new streaming app? That's right, you can listen to KLEK 102.5 FM anywhere in the world. The app is available for all Android phones and tablets, as well as iPhones and iPads. Just search your app store for KLEK and download the KLEK app for free today. And don't miss a beat of the education, entertainment, and empowerment on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. This is our monthly Ask the Attorney segment with local attorney Scott Willhite. We do this every second Wednesday of the month. And of course, we're still taking your questions and comments at 870-277-1080. Once again, that phone number is 870-277-1080. We're also streaming live on our Facebook and our Instagram as well as our YouTube. Got a couple comments. We got a Facebook shout from Robert Herndon and got a couple comments. Amy Cook Willhite says so true, and the little flexor muscles thing. I guess that was obviously when we talked about earlier about her weightlifting. But Amy, and thank you for checking in. Also, Robert, thank you for checking in as well. Before we get back to Mr. Willhite, I want to bring in my news intern, Alexis. Wanted to see if you had any questions or comments.
To ask the attorney?
Or just, if you have any questions, comments from Mr. Willhite or any comments. Come up to the mic, please.
Trying to think of a question, maybe. Okay, so we can go ahead, since I am in college, we can bring it to the college students. So I know that it's a big thing for kids and students who do drugs, especially weed, and I do know that there's a law being passed in Arkansas for medical marijuana to be passed. So let's say a student let's say a student was pulled over by the cops and he had some weed on him, but let's say it wasn't the medicinal kind, but he does have a pass, but it was the street, like weed from the actual streets. How would that be taken in the court system?
Well, and you're asking me something that sort of, I have to look into the future a little bit here, because all these, the legalization of medical marijuana, issue, and that's going to complicate lots of areas, workers' comp cases, situations where someone has a small amount of marijuana. There's various issues that are going to be a change of law in the future for all of those areas. But, that would be handled, typical district court case. Possession of marijuana is a criminal charge. It's not, if you look at it relative to other charges, it's not seen as a very serious charge anymore. The courts have different policies on jail time. The previous court placed a requirement of jail time regarding any possession charge of that type. I think more recently there's leniency there depending on the circumstance, depending on the number of prior arrests for that situation. So, it's almost handled like possession of alcohol now. It's not quite in that category, but it's close.
Okay.
But you look and see if there is an actual problem. Maybe the person's had drug issues in the past. It'll be considered more seriously. If it's a first offense, I think our court systems are set up to give people second chances by, some courts call it diversion, sort of putting the case off for a while and see if there's any more trouble, and maybe if there's no more trouble, it gets dismissed. Sometimes we put under a situation where they're on probation for a period of time, something of that sort. So there are opportunities to avoid a harsh result under most circumstances.
Okay.
All right. And
well, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Scott, I want, in the moments we have left, can you tell us more about your experience with the Arkansas Supreme Court?
Sure, and it was a very interesting experience. Number one, I viewed the Supreme Court as these, very sort of select, elite lawyers who were sort of untouchable. You never saw them necessarily, you never met them, but I actually got to sit with them twice in the conference room, discuss cases. I got to conference on the telephone with them multiple times, maybe 5 or 6 times regarding issues of the case. And the thing I came away with, Wabila, is these are just hardworking people who are trying to do the right thing. And there's all kinds of political backgrounds in that group. It seems to me there were 9 different justices. And to be sitting at the table with those people was a very humbling experience for me, because they're very bright, very, very bright people in that room who understood issues not only for face value, but for how it would affect the population around that issue. So I came away with the thought that these are quality lawyers trying to do the right thing, but the law restricts them sometimes from doing that, and we have to. I was just very impressed.
Oh no! All right, so and then to go back one more time to talk about appointed versus elected.
Yes.
Some of the argument could be where does their interest lie? Where does their loyalty lie? And then, of course, this discussion probably go on and on, which we don't have time for today. And everyone's going to have their own opinion still. When all is said and done, everyone is still going to walk away with their opinion, no matter what has been said, one way or the other. So,
but what we want is the best people in those positions. And so there are good and bad points for both processes, either elected or appointed. But what we want to do is maintain a quality judicial system.
Okay. Now, people that go through the election process, of course, do they have to go through a strict vetting process?
Well, not necessarily. Not in the election process.
Oh my
There's
gosh.
simply a requirement of a certain number of signatures or a certain filing fee, but it's not very strict.
They don't go through a background check. Like,
yeah, there will be some
background,
sure.
but not as extensive as probably should be.
But most lawyers are already governed by the bar,
Okay.
and so they can't be in trouble. They can't have a substance abuse problem.
Okay.
They can't have been cited for various problems, things of that sort. So there is some vetting process that has already taken place.
Okay.
I don't have anything. Michael, she looked like she was looking like she may have
I'm just
something.
enjoying the conversation. I believe that I've learned a lot today. Other than that, I'd like to speak more to you about the air and the ARIS process, only because it's dear to my heart and things that I need to know. But other than that, I'm glad to have met you. It's impressive that you served on the Supreme Court. Like, that's awesome.
Thank you. It's great to have you guys here to have some new ideas and questions and perspectives.
Definitely. I hope that we can help you, kind of engage with the collegiate era a little bit more, because I know
That would be wonderful.
we're young, so we don't know a lot of things, and we're ignorant to
And
some of the law.
In the last few seconds, Scott, we just want to thank you for your support by doing this show, being a board member, and all the ways that you've helped. Because of the support of people like you, we're able to give young ladies such as Micah and Alexis the opportunity to learn more about this business. You guys have a great and blessed day. This is KLEK 102.5 FM.
Thank you for listening to Community Conversations.